Chapter 1, Mr. Perfect ***. My name is John Wilson, a man who, in the eyes of my neighbors and colleagues, is practically perfect. In our house in the suburbs, the one with the white picket fence, I play the roles of husband and father like a seasoned actor. Every smile, every embrace is perfectly timed, flawlessly executed. 25 years ago, when I first met Mary in the university library, she was absorbed in a heavy legal tome, a soft halo of sunlight from the window illuminating her auburn hair. She possessed a quiet, formidable strength like an uncut diamond, and I saw how that diamond could add luster to my life. During my courtship, I presented the best version of myself. I was witty, considerate, bringing her hot coffee during her all-night study sessions and remembering every little thing she mentioned in passing. I painted a fantastical future for her, a grand house, 2 lovely children, and a husband who would eternally support her career. She was captured in the web of love I wove, and the gentle resilience in her eyes eventually belonged completely to me. She believed I was her ideal man. As for me, I had simply found the perfect partner to build my stage. Chapter 2, The Silent Erosion. Married life unfolded just as I had planned. Mary, with her brilliance, quickly made a name for herself in the legal world, her income soon surpassing mine as a project manager at a mid-sized firm. Not only did she soar in her career, but she also managed our home impeccably, handling the children's education and the endless household chores on her own. And I began to savor the exquisite dessert of power. My power did not come from creation, but from control and diminution. The first time Mary won the Best New Associate of the Year award at her firm, she was ecstatic, preparing a candlelight dinner at home. She raised her glass, her eyes sparkling like stars. "John, I did it. They all recognized my work." I smiled, swirling the red wine in my glass. I waited for her excitement to subside before saying, in a casual, offhand tone, "That's wonderful, honey, but this law business is so demanding. Look, you have fine lines around your eyes. I'm just worried about your health. Besides, a woman doesn't need to push herself so hard. The family is what's most important, isn't it?" The light in her face dimmed instantly. That night, she didn't mention her work again. That was my first lesson. Use concern as a weapon to transform her achievements into a burden. When she insisted on buying our current suburban house with a bonus she had earned, I outwardly agreed. But on moving day, I declared loudly in front of our friends, "Look at this home. This is the dream kingdom I built for Mary and the children." I saw Mary behind the crowd, lowering her head with a complicated expression. I made her understand that no matter how much she contributed, the ownership and final say over this home would always be mine. The children became my most perfect instruments. Our eldest son, Michael, was closer to Mary because she always patiently answered his peculiar questions. So I would whisper to him, "Your mom wants to control everything, doesn't she? She always uses her set of right answers for you. Come on, Dad will take you to buy the latest video game console. This will be our little secret." Gradually, Michael grew impatient with Mary's guidance, even retorting with, "You're so annoying." Whenever this happened, I would stand aside, feigning a helpless shake of the head, but my eyes would be filled with triumphant joy. I had successfully built an invisible wall between her and her children. Chapter 3, The Fear Within. Late at night, I often sat alone in my study, watching Mary's busy silhouette through the crack in the door. She would be folding freshly laundered clothes, checking the children's homework, and preparing for breakfast the next day. Her back looked weary, but it was still resilient. Holding my glass of whiskey, a pathological sense of satisfaction would wash over me. look at this capable, intelligent woman, I'd think, asterisk, this elite lawyer who shines in the outside world. Before me, she is nothing but a wife whose spirit I have completely under my control. Asterisk, this home, this seemingly happy harbor, was a theater I had meticulously constructed, and I was its sole director. However, beneath this supreme sense of control, a small, sharp fear would occasionally rear its head like a viper. What if one day Mary saw through my facade? What if her eyes, once filled with love, held nothing but resolve and hatred? What if the children grew up and understood what I had done? How would they see me as a father? If this kingdom I controlled were to collapse in an instant, what would be left of me, John Wilson? I was a mediocre man in my youth, and it was Mary's competence that had afforded me this comfortable life. My entire sense of superiority was built upon my psychological suppression of her. I was terrified of losing it all, terrified of reverting to the pathetic, worthless man I once was. But I never acknowledged this fear. I buried it deep within my soul, arming myself with more control, more belittlement, because in my world, fear was synonymous with weakness, and I could never, ever be weak. Chapter 4, The Breaking Point. The day it all fell apart began like any other. I came home from work to find Mary in the kitchen preparing dinner. She was quieter than usual. Even her posture radiated a chilling silence. "John," she said without turning around, her voice terrifyingly calm, "could you come to the study?" A knot tightened in my stomach, but I kept the gentle smile fixed on my face. "Of course, dear. Just let me change my clothes first." When I walked into the study, she was standing at my desk, holding my personal tablet. The screen was on, displaying my chat history with a girl named Kitten, the contents of which were obscene. Next to it were bank transfer records, each payment flowing to different young women. That money was the money Mary had worked so hard to earn. My mind went blank. The perfect world I had built for myself shattered with a deafening crack. "Mary, let me explain." I tried to form the words, the familiar, hollow excuses tangling on my tongue. "This is just a stupid joke. It's a misunderstanding." She finally turned to face me. The eyes I had once loved held no fire of anger, only the dead calm of a frozen sea. Disappointment, betrayal, and the absolute finality that comes after years of repression pierced me like a sword. "John, I saw your chats with those girls. I saw you supporting them with our family's money. For 20 years, I thought I was building a home. It turns out I was just funding a liar and providing his stage," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word was devastating. "I've had enough. I want a divorce." Divorce? The word struck me like a sledgehammer. What I felt was not the pain of lost love, but the panic of losing control, of losing my fortune. Chapter 5, Scorched Earth. I would not let go so easily. For me, the divorce wasn't the end of a marriage. It was the final war to seize the assets I believed were mine. I had been lazy and incompetent in my youth. It was Mary who had provided me with everything. Now, I had to grasp onto what was rightfully mine. And so, I initiated a brutal 6-year-long war of attrition. I hired the most unscrupulous lawyer in the city, a man whose motto was, "The law is a weapon. The truth is irrelevant." We used every procedural trick to delay, to appeal and reappeal, to contest every piece of evidence. Every court hearing became a stage for my public humiliation of Mary. "Your Honor," I would declare with tears in my eyes, "I love my wife deeply, but her careerism has led her to neglect our family, even to inflict emotional abuse upon me. Everything I did was merely a desperate search for a little emotional comfort. I twisted the facts in front of our children, telling them, "Your mother is trying to destroy this family for money. She never truly loved us." I watched as Mary grew gaunt and weary under the dual assault of legal maneuvering and psychological torture. The light in her eyes was extinguished, replaced by an endless exhaustion. The children began to distance themselves from her, even providing testimony against her in court. Every time I saw her weeping silently in the courthouse hallway, a cruel pleasure surged within me. This was my chessboard, and she and our children were merely pawns to be sacrificed for my victory. Chapter 6: The Philippine Dream. Throughout this protracted war, I had already paved my escape route, a paradise of sun, sand, and young women, the Philippines. During a business trip, I met Lila through a specialized website. She was only 20, younger than my own daughter, with honey-toned skin and the innocent eyes of a doe. When she looked at me, her gaze was filled with adoration and dependence. "John, you are such a charming and powerful man," she would say, nestled in my arms, her voice sickeningly sweet. I took her to the finest restaurants, bought her designer bags and jewelry. I told her I was going through a painful divorce and that she was the angel sent to save me. Hearing this, her eyes welled up with tears and she clung to me. "I don't care about your past. I only want your future. I want to have your baby, to build a family that is truly ours. Have your baby." Those words were the most beautiful spell, and I was utterly enchanted. Here was a young, submissive, perfect partner who could satisfy my every need for control and vanity. I immediately bought her a luxury condo in Manila, a new car, and generously covered her entire family's expenses. A few months later, Lila was pregnant. As I stood on the balcony of the Ocean View condo, feeling the warm Pacific breeze and looking at Lila's slightly swelling belly, I felt I had reached the pinnacle of my life. Wealth, power, and young love everything was under my control. The divorce battle back in the States was just a final, messy detail to be concluded. 6 years later, the final judgment came. Mary, emotionally and financially depleted, and with our children's testimony against her, lost. The court awarded me the majority of our marital assets. On the day we signed the final papers, Mary looked at me with an unnerving calm. "You win, John. Take the money. I just want my freedom. I don't want to be tortured by you anymore." I nodded, a faint, imperceptible smile playing on my lips. She thought she had gained freedom, but she didn't realize she had lost everything. And I, with my spoils of war, flew toward my new life. Chapter 7: The Velvet Trap. I thought I was beginning a new chapter, a perfect second life entirely under my command. Instead, I had walked straight into a more sophisticated, tailor-made trap. Lila and her family were far better actors than I ever was. At first, everything was intoxicatingly sweet. Lila was completely obedient, and her parents and siblings treated me with the utmost respect, calling me our family's benefactor. They threw lavish parties in my honor, making me feel like a king. Soon after, Lila began to say in a pouting, playful tone, "Darling, it's too much work for you to handle all the finances. Why don't you let me manage the accounts? I'm your wife. I'll take care of everything for you." I remembered how meticulously Mary had managed our finances for 2 decades. Now, I was the king of this household. Why should I be bothered with such trivial matters? Without hesitation, I gave her full control of all my bank accounts. It was a fatal mistake. Her family began to attach themselves to my wealth like silent leeches. One day, her brother needed money for a business venture. The next, Her father needed a new car. Then, the entire family wanted to broaden their horizons with a trip to Europe. Lila wrapped every request in the softest words, framing them as investments in our future or for the honor of the family. I started to feel that something was wrong, but whenever I raised a question, Lila's eyes would fill with tears. "John, don't you trust me? I'm carrying your child. I'm managing everything for you, and you doubt me?" Her tears, her vulnerability, were weapons I couldn't resist. I remembered how I had used the same emotional manipulation to silence Mary's questions. Now, the same methods were being used on me. The irony was, I fell for it, again and again. I was living in a delusion. I thought I was in control of this home, but in reality, I was nothing more than the family's personal ATM. Lila and her relatives performed a play of love and admiration for me, while backstage they squandered my money, even using it to support their own lovers. I began to suffer from insomnia, Mary's face haunting my thoughts. I remembered how I had crushed her with cold remarks when she got a promotion, how I had stolen her sense of accomplishment with sarcasm when she bought our house. And now it was my turn. I couldn't control my money. Lila controlled me. I thought I was enjoying love, but I was being emotionally manipulated. I believed I was a genius, but I was being played by a 20-year-old girl and her family. Everything I had inflicted on Mary was now returning to me twofold. Chapter 8: The King's Demise. After our child was born, things got worse. Lila devoted all her attention to the baby and her family, and I became a complete outsider. The mansion I had bought became their personal party house, and I was just the silent background fixture who provided the funds. One night, I accidentally overheard Lila talking to her brother. They were speaking in their local dialect, but I distinctly heard the words John, money, and transfer. I stormed into the room and confronted her. This time, she didn't cry. She held the baby and looked at me coldly, as if I were a stranger. Her brother and father came in, surrounding me menacingly. "Old man, you've been a freeloader here long enough," her brother said in broken English. "This house is Lila's now. The money is hers. You'd better behave." In that moment, I felt as if I had been plunged into ice water. I rushed to the bank, only to find all my accounts had been emptied. I went to the property registry and discovered the mansion was now registered under Lila's mother's name. I had been bled dry. There was nothing left. I went back to confront Lila like a madman, but was stopped at the gate by her security guards. She stood on the second-floor balcony, holding our child, looking down at me with a contemptuous smile. It was the exact same smile I had worn as I watched Mary cry outside the courtroom. I wanted to return to the United States, but I discovered my passport and all my identification documents were lost. I had become a foreigner with no identity and no money. I sought help from the U.S. Embassy, but without any ID, I couldn't even prove that I was who I said I was. I was completely and utterly trapped. Chapter 9: The Shell on the Corner ****. The Philippine sun was no longer warm. The sea breeze cut like a razor. I was homeless, a forgotten shadow wandering the streets. By day, I roamed aimlessly, watching the cars I once owned drive past. By night, I huddled in a cardboard box, my mind replaying my entire life on a loop. How I had turned my children against Mary. Now I was utterly abandoned by Lila and our child. How I had tortured Mary with cold indifference. Now I was destroyed by sweet words and merciless lies. How I had flaunted my wealth and control. Now I had nothing, not even my own identity. The hallucinations began. I would often hear Mary's voice whispering in my ear, "Did you think you controlled everything, John? He who manipulates others will eventually be manipulated by someone more ruthless." I would see Lila with another, younger man holding our child and laughing at me, calling me a stupid old fool. I started to forget things, to forget my own name. I even began to doubt my own existence. I huddled on a street corner, surrounded by a foreign language and mocking stares, with nothing but a vast, hollow emptiness inside me. 2 decades of narcissism, manipulation, and deceit had not brought me eternal control, but absolute desolation and a shattered mind. The one who controls is destined to be controlled. The world of the narcissist is, in the end, an empty shell. The sea breeze washed over my face, carrying the salty, damp air. I no longer felt pain, nor did I feel fear, because I could no longer remember who I was. I was just a nameless shell, a ghost haunting the streets of a foreign city, unrecognized and unremembered. This was my final chapter, the one I, John Wilson, a narcissist, had earned